it was important for me to make sure that everybody knew why we're here and why I do this and why I torture myself. It's because of the love that you can hear in the people that called to check on their friend. And the thousands of people that showed up the day that we buried him. And why all of you are here, because there's a connection, there's a love, there's a sensitivity. There's a reason that we do this, and that's because us family members and crime victims want to make sure that our loved ones are not forgotten. So whatever motivated you for being here tonight, thank you, because my motivation is to make sure you know about my brother and to make sure that you understand the plight of crime victims. And again, for whatever brings you here, I want you to walk away with the sensitivity and understanding that 27 years, almost 27 years later, this can cripple me. Jesus is right. It's 27 years on June 12th. And it's as raw as it was the night that my dad called me to tell me that my brother was killed. I don't know how many of you know our story, so I'll give a little background. My brother and I were raised by my dad in the 70s. My dad was awarded sole custody of his 2 kids. My mom left when I was 3.5 and my brother was 6. And my brother and I thank my dad every day until my brother died. Thanked him for what he did and the courage that he had and the fight that he had and the tenacity to keep going back to court to make sure that he took care of us. And for any of you that have ever followed our case or know my dad, you see him, he's a big mush pot. But that's the guy that raised me and raised my brother. To be the threesome that we were, to be the 3 peas in a pod is how we used to refer to ourselves. So the night that my dad had to call me and let me know that my brother was killed, my dad will tell you is the hardest thing he's ever had to do. I was living in San Francisco at the time. I was going to school, trying to get my degree in psychology. I was living in sin. Thank you. That relationship has long gone. I'm happily engaged. So thank you. There you go, Rhett. But at the time, I was a college student. I was working at Wells Fargo Bank. I was so happy in my life. And during that day, I was in the break room, and I saw the television screen, and I saw a body being wheeled into I guess it was a coroner's van, an ambulance, I don't really remember, probably coroner's van. And I'm walking by, eating my rice or whatever it was I was eating. Didn't think anything of it. And my girlfriend Amy drove me home that day. Usually I take the bus. That day I got a ride from her. I was going home to go to the gym, which I never do. So I got home, and my boyfriend at the time opened the door, and I remember he was white. And I remember I could kind of see his heart thumping through his shirt, and I thought, this is weird. Like, why is he acting so weird? And he rushes me in, and he says, you got to call your dad. I said, my dad's fine. No, you got to call your dad. And I said, I'm going to go through the mail. And he says, you got to call your dad. I'm like, I got to pee. No, you got to call your dad. And I kept thinking, this is so bizarre. And at that time, we didn't have cell phones. We had one landline in the apartment, and it was in the extra bedroom. And I was thinking, oh, he's going to propose to me. So I needed to go freshen up and make sure. And he kept yelling at me to go call my dad. And so I said, fine, finally. I went into the extra bedroom, and there was no ring, no flowers, and there was a phone. So I was like, well, shit, I'm already, oh, sorry, I cuss, by the way. Okay, I'm in Texas. I think we're allowed to do that here. I do it anywhere. My kid is not with me. Thank you. My thing doesn't come when they're done, otherwise I do leg lifts and splits. I digress. It's a very important part of the story that I'm laughing about. So I pulled up the phone, and I remember dialing the house, and Joe was all nuzzled up close to me, and I remember thinking, like, this is so uncomfortable. And my dad picked up, and his wife got on the phone, and he said, Kim, yes, he said, have you been watching the news today? And I said, no. He's like, have you heard anything on the news? No. Why are you calling me about the news? And he paused, and he gulped, and he said that Ron died. And I thought, what? And he said it again, and I'm thinking car crash. I don't know why I'm thinking car accident, car crash. And I remember dropping the phone, and I remember Joe picking it up and putting it back to my ears, and my dad was just crying and telling me I had to come home. And I said, what happened? And he said, I don't know. We don't know what happened. And he said, did you hear anything about Nicole Brown Simpson? I said, I don't know who that is. And he said, O.J. Simpson. I said, I don't know who that is. And he said, but you need to come home. And okay. And Joe had already booked flights for us. And I don't know. I'd never been to a funeral before. I packed like 32 pairs of underwear, no pants. That was really going to be a good look. But I was pacing. I mean, honestly, I was up in San Francisco. The news didn't break in San Francisco yet. And I got to the airport. I got on the plane. I was bawling because I had no information. At that time, we were allowed to be in the airport and greet your family members or friends. And I remember coming off the long walkway to see my dad at the end. And I just fell into his arms, and I was like, I didn't know. I just didn't know what had happened. We had no information. We get in the car, and in Los Angeles, there's an AM station, KFI 640. And I remember huddled in the car with my dad in the back seat, and the radio was on, and it said, today in Brentwood, Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman were found slaughtered to death. That's the first time. That's the first time, and they only referred to him as her friend. It took years for us to get people to call him by his name. So that's why I do this.